Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Mokuton Naruto adopted by Tsunade. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by AVAIN 1991 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. A shinobi like no other. Chapter 1. October 10th is a date that would forever living in the memories of the villagers of Konoha or the village hidden in the leaves. It was the date that the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked and almost destroyed the village, it was the date that the life of their yandere Hokage Minato Namikaze lost his life, it was the day Naruto Uzumaki became the Kyuubi's container. However, to one young woman it was the start of great change. She ran and ran towards a guarded forest and found the crying babe that now harbored the Kyuubi. She didn't understand what had drawn her to him, but she knew that she would protect him. As she kneeled to pick him up, the woman with long red hair that was holding him grabbed her wrist. Uzumaki-san. Anko, keep my son safe. Anko nodded at the order before Kushina Uzumaki closed her eyes for the last time. Anko felt the tears fall before she picked up the little one now identified as Naruto Uzumaki, the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Don't worry Naruto Shimai, big sister will look after you. Anko said. She later found the Sandame Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, the professor and god of shinobi, in the office, wearing the robes and hat of the position once more. Lord Hokage. Anko said as the man turned to face her. He was surprised to see Naruto in her arms. Anko, well, I am happy to see the apprentice of one of my students. May I ask why you have Naruto in your arms? I found him just before his mother Kushina Uzumaki died. Sarutobi looked at Anko, his eyes filled with surprise. I had hoped to keep that hidden. For if it became known who his family was, the council as well as Kushina's enemies would come after him. I swore to her that I would protect her son, and I plan to do just that. Sarutobi smiled slightly. I believe you would. And what if your master were to take you from the village? Then I will either turn him down or take Naruto with me. Orochimaru will not take too kindly to that. I don't care. Anko said, making the Hokage smile once more. It need not come to that, we will merely have to change a few things. Tanuki. Sarutobi called, making an Anbu appear wearing a raccoon mask. Yes, Lord Hokage. I have a long-term mission for both you and Anko. Remove your mask, Rin. The Anbu stood up and removed her mask, showing the face of a young woman with two purple fang marks, showing that she had been adopted into the Inuzuka family. The two of you are now responsible for Naruto and his upbringing, however you need not do it alone. Part of your mission will be to track down Tsunade Senju and her apprentice Shizune to help you. They, along with Jiraiya and Orochimaru, will help you train and care for him. How long is this to last? Until his 13th birthday, the day he would join the shinobi ranks. However, if his masters do not believe him ready, they may keep him away till they deem him so, but first, Sarutobi said, walking over to the scroll of seals, the ancient scroll that held forbidden jutsu of the village, and unrolled it. Lord Hokage, what are you doing? Rin asked. Giving Naruto a little gift. He, like his mother, will be a chakra powerhouse. The Kyuubi will increase that effect, so normal clones will be useless to him. These three jutsu will help him in the future: shadow clone, multi-shadow clone, and exploding clone jutsu. Also remind Tsunade of her duties as Naruto's godmother. I believe that by now the counselor Danzo will have sent a message to her saying that he died today. Jiraiya is his godfather, so he will take this seriously. You leave when you are packed and ready to go. I will wire you money every month to pay for Naruto's needs. Both Kunoichi nodded their heads as they left the room in a hurry and ran to gather their things, not trusting anything to be left behind, while they also stopped at a store and purchased diapers, wipes, and just about anything else they thought Naruto would need before leaving through the front gates, not caring if anyone tried to stop them or not. In a dark room under Konoha, Danzo waited as two of his rude Anbu appeared before him, however their arms were empty. Where is it? Danzo asked. The container has already been recovered by someone loyal to the Sandame before we arrived, Danzo-sama. One said in an emotionless voice. Why didn't you kill them and take the container? It was the apprentice of Orochimaru-sama. Damn, her death couldn't be covered by the Kyuubi attack since Orochimaru kept her with him the entire time. Where is it now? Hokage-sama has sent it out of the village, along with one of the two living students of the yandere, Rin and Anko. We were unable to learn more because Hokage-sama activated privacy seals blocking our entry. Danzo turned away from his Anbu and placed his hands on his desk. It seems Hiruzen anticipated my move and prevented it with help from his students and those of the yandere to stop me. It seems I must use political means to gain such a weapon. You two are dismissed. Danzo said, making both rude agents vanish. Soon Hiruzen, I will reach my goal, and with help from that boy, I will bring the elemental nations under my command. Danzo thought before leaving the room, knowing that an emergency meeting of the councils would be called. His prediction came true when soon the civilian and shinobi councils were called. The civilian side, demanding the death of the container known as Naruto Uzumaki. Two of the San and Jiraiya and Orochimaru were there as well, both wearing black bodysuits like they wore during the Second Shinobi War and flak jackets showing their ranks. Orochimaru had his headband tied around his waist like a belt, while Jiraiya wore his on his forehead, which kept his long spiky silver hair out of his eyes. Silence. The Sandaime called, giving off the kai that reminded everyone who here was known as the god of shinobi. I have only called the civilian council here out of necessity. I will not allow you to try and bully me into giving you power like you tried with Minato. The civilian side grew silent, knowing that even though he was aged, the Sandaime was not going to be pushed to give them what they wanted. Now Naruto's fate has already been decided. He, along with two others, have left to find Tsunade, where she will take her duty as his godmother and raise him. The civilian side opened their mouths to talk, but the glare Hiruzen sent them made them shut up. Hiruzen, is it best to let such a weapon leave our village? Danzo asked, knowing that even the shinobi side would have to agree with him on that part. The boy is but a child forced to take a fate that no one should face. If left here, I know certain groups would do all they could to make his life miserable, thinking of him as the prisoner instead of the jailer. It's troublesome, but I agree with Lord Hokage, the best future for young Naruto is outside of this village, where no one will know who he is. The head of the Nara clan said, getting nods from all the Shinobi Council members. To make it official, I am passing a law that states any mention of Naruto being the container of the Kyuubi will be punishable by death. There are no exceptions, even council members will be killed by my Anbu. Everyone took the hint and knew that now was the time to keep anything about the Kyuubi quiet. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, head to my office. It's time for me to inform you both of your part to play. Hiruzen said as they left the council chambers and into his office. Once the doors were closed and the privacy seals activated, Hiruzen faced his two students. I take it we're finally going to learn why Anko has vanished? Orochimaru asked, making the Sandaime nod. What I said in the council chamber was true. Naruto is being taken to Tsunade. What they don't know is Anko and Rin are the ones taking him. They are part of the mission I am giving to you. As you know, Jiraiya Naruto is the son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. Jiraiya nodded sadly, but Orochimaru was wide-eyed. That's the reason you really want to keep him safe. If I were to ever learn this. Orochimaru didn't finish, knowing that all three men knew what could happen to young Naruto. The mission is simple. For the next 13 years, the two of you along with Tsunade are responsible for raising and training Naruto into a shinobi that no one, not even I, will wish to fight against. However, if at the end of 13 years any one of you have doubts that he is ready, Naruto will remain with you. If I do not hear otherwise, I will expect you back in time for him to graduate from the academy. Hi, sensei. The two called as they turned and walked out of the room. Good luck to you all. Sarutobi whispered as they left. Anko and Rin were running across treetops until they felt two people start to pursue them. Damn. Anko. It's alright, Rin. It's Orochimaru-sensei. Anko said, making Rin pause in her sentence. Anko was proven correct when the two male Sannin appeared and joined them. Anko-chan, I'm glad to see that you're taking this so seriously. Orochimaru said as he noticed the little one still asleep in Anko's arms. It was his mother's last wish. Anko said, making the two men nod their heads in understanding. Where were you two going? We thought we'd try the local gambling towns since Tsunade-sama is known to frequent them. Rin said, making the two men smile. That would have been a safe bet, however she isn't anywhere near here. Jiraiya said. According to my network, she's on her way to Hot Springs Village to take in the new gambling den that they've just finished. Good thing you kept that network. Orochimaru said, remembering in the past how he had made fun of Jiraiya for building a spy network that covers all over the nation, but during the Third Shinobi War, it had saved not only Konoha, but it had even saved the lives of all three Sannin at one point or another. Yep, now we just gotta make Tsunade Haim believe that this is her godson. Jiraiya said, making Orochimaru nod. They both knew how Tsunade took the loss of her younger brother Nawaki and her lover Dan. Kushina had been the only thing to make her visit the village at any point, and when she learned about Kushina being pregnant, she had been ecstatic at the idea of being a godmother. Only to have it ripped away like all of her past loved ones. The two also knew Danzo would do anything to get Naruto into his clutches and knew that at any time they could expect Root Ninja to try and do so. They also knew that Tsunade as well as themselves would never allow such a thing. They would never allow Minato and Kushina's son to become an emotionless weapon. While also running, they talked together about the possible things to teach Naruto and agreed that his mother's Kenjutsu scrolls, which were currently in Jiraiya's care, would be good to start. Leaving his father's jutsu, the Rasengan and the Flying Thunder God, for later when he had more knowledge about seals and chakra channeling. The three fully grown adults, one preteen and one baby, reached Hot Springs Village in almost no time. The former shinobi village was nothing more than a tourist location now known for its healing hot springs, hence the name. It was also known to produce places where guests could relax and enjoy themselves. Unfortunately, they were also famous for getting those with power so relaxed that they spill out secrets which are turned around and sold for a profit. Mostly to shinobi and kunoichi like Jiraiya that focused on espionage. Problem was every country had these problems, even military strong Kumo and lighting country. We should split up to find Tsunade Haim and her apprentice. Anko will head towards the inns and see if they are around there, if not she should get us a couple rooms at a decent price to live in. Jiraiya said, making Orochimaru nod as he took out his pocketbook and threw it towards his student. Rin will take the bathhouses. Rin nodded at the idea. Orochimaru will take the gambling dens while I take the bars. If we can't find either of them by sundown, we'll find Anko and Naruto and try again in the morning. Everyone nodded at their job and started moving around. As the sun was starting to set, Orochimaru walked into the last den he had found before he decided to call it a night, only to find the woman in question sitting at the slots while her apprentice had a black storm cloud over her head, telling him that Tsunade was once again having her usual bad luck. The same luck that got her the name the Legionary Sucker. Orochimaru walked over and saw that Shizune holding Tonton the piglet in her arms. I see your usual unlucky streak has struck again. Orochimaru said as he walked up, making both women look at him. Orochimaru-sama, what are you doing here? I, Jiraiya, my apprentice Anko, and the Yondaime student Rin are here to recruit you both for a long-term mission by order of the newly reinstated Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi-sensei. Not interested. Tsunade said. It requires you to fulfill your role as godmother to Kushina's son. Orochimaru said, making Tsunade go wide-eyed. But this said, Tsunade took out a scroll and tossed it to her teammate, who opened it and learned that their suspicion that Danzo would try and keep her away from Naruto was correct. It seems Danzo's ambition knows no bounds. Orochimaru said. So it's a lie he's alive? Tsunade asked in a very small voice. Yes, he's alive and currently with Anko at an inn waiting for the rest of us to join her. The mission is simple: care for, raise, and train Naruto for a period of 13 years. At that time we are to return and put him through the academy graduation exam. However, if at 13 years one of us, Jiraiya, you, or myself, feel he isn't ready, we will keep him away till we feel he is. There is more. Naruto is the container of the Kyuubi. His father sealed it away inside of him as his last action as Hokage. Anko was there to hear his mother's last wish and took it to heart. She already thinks of him as her little brother. We already know Rin is going to be in that category as well as Shizune, while Jiraiya is sure he'll be called uncle, as am I, to be honest. However, what he needs most is someone to be like a mother to him. Orochimaru said. Tsunade seemed to get a serious look in her eyes. Take me to him. Her teammate nodded as the three humans and the piglet left the den to locate Anko and Naruto. The trip was rather short, although Orochimaru was proud of his student for setting up means to alert her if someone was coming near. When they found the room empty, Orochimaru smiled and looked up, seeing Anko sticking to the ceiling holding Naruto in one arm and a kunai in the other in a protective hold. Verification? Anko asked, narrowing her eyes at the group of three. Snakes shed their skin. Only when they've grown too long. Anko finished, making her drop down and place the kunai away. It's good to see Sarutobi-sensei's lessons are still being used well. Tsunade said, making Orochimaru smile and Anko blush slightly at the praised Tsunade, then noticed the bundle in Anko's arms, waking yawning as he opened his cerulean blue eyes. Tsunade moved forward but paused as she looked at Anko and held her arms out. May I? He's your godson. Anko said as she handed Naruto over to Tsunade. Tsunade smiled down at the little bundle in her arms as she raised her free hand and used one finger to press the little nose, making him scrunch his face much like his mother did when she was born. When she moved to do so again, Naruto grabbed her finger and brought it to his mouth and started to nibble on it. Tsunade smiled, remembering when Kushina did the same on the day she was born. While the two were distant cousins, Kushina had always been something of a little sister to Tsunade. Soon bells rang through the room. That's the alarm. Anko said as she reached for her kunai again, only for the door to be opened by Jiraiya and Rin, who were both surprised to see Naruto in Tsunade's arms, gumming her finger. Verification? Orochimaru said, drawing his sword and standing near his apprentice. As long as there are leaves on the tree. The will of fire burns. Orochimaru finished spinning the sword grass cutter before sheathing it on his back, while Anko returned her kunai. Jiraiya smiled, remembering their old safe code used throughout the Second War. Now that we are all here, have you informed Tsunade Haim about the mission? He has, and I will take my duty as his godmother to help raise him and train him. The only problem I can see is the need to keep on the move and to hide his whisker marks. The hair and eyes we can pass off as being my son instead of Minato's. Who are we going to say is his father? It can't be anyone alive unless it's either Orochimaru or myself, otherwise they're going to hear about it, and it's been too long to say he belongs to Shizune's uncle. Jiraiya said, answering Rin's question. What about saying he's the byproduct of a one-nighter? She could say she was too drunk to remember him clearly and no one would question it since she is known to drink. Anko suggested, making a few nod at the idea. It did have value as a plan, but what about all the people that have seen her recently in bars drinking? Rin asked. Someone under a henge to keep it a secret. I mean, think about it, when the world learns of a Senju heir, who knows what could happen. We know Kumo especially will want to take him, though the problem is, there'll be nothing compared to what he'd face if I would ever learn the truth. Orochimaru finished for his teammate. The silver-haired man nodded in agreement. Alright, so we drop the Uzumaki from his name and make him Naruto Senju. If he's anything like his father or mother, it will be an easy sell. Which just leaves the issue of his. Jiraiya paused, suddenly making the group look at the wide-eye Sannin before looking down at Naruto. They almost didn't believe their eyes when his whisker marks started fading. Everyone looked at it in surprise before they faded completely. Alright, I don't think even Sarutobi-sensei could have seen that one coming. Orochimaru thought as Jiraiya moved over and picked up Naruto before setting him down on the bed, uncovering his stomach. The seal appeared, making everyone look as Jiraiya checked the seal. Is something wrong with it? Rin asked. No, it's in perfect working condition, Jiraiya said, looking over his student's seal. Then why did they disappear? I don't know. It could be a part of Minato's last gift to his son, a way to keep the sign that he is a container out of sight. Knowing Minato, he would do something like that to ensure his son's well-being. Then why not have them never show up in the first place? Anko asked. Does it really matter? It just made this young baby's life easier. Shizune said, making everyone look at each other before shrugging. I guess not, but we should look into it in the future just to make sure. Jiraiya said, making Orochimaru and Tsunade nod. Now it'll be a little easier to hide the fact that he is a container, but we'd still have to keep on the move. Even if he is the son of Tsunade Haim instead of Minato and Kushina, people will try and take him. Now the question becomes, what do we teach him when he's ready? Tsunade said, making Jiraiya nod again. We have Kushina's Kenjutsu scrolls and Minato's signature jutsu scrolls, but after some of that he won't be ready for until he's older. It also depends on which summon he picks out of toads and slugs. I've already got a student that will sign the snake contract in a few years. Orochimaru said. We'll leave the choice to him and we'll figure out where to go from there. Tsunade said, making the group nod in agreement. For now let's rest up before we move on. Shizune. Yes, sensei. I want you and Rin to go to our hotel room and gather our supplies and bring them here. Hi. Shizune said with a slight bow as she and Rin left the room. Soon it became clear that Naruto was hungry and the time had come for his first feeding. However, instead of using a bottle, Tsunade quickly ran through some hand signs. Anko, get the pervert and your master out of the room as well. Anko nodded as she dragged both men out of the room. The reason why Tsunade insisted on the fact was because her bust soon grew more than her original large E-cup. She hissed at the slight discomfort but relaxed as she picked up Naruto and uncovered her left breast. I know, little one, I know. Tsunade said as she brought Naruto up to her breast and wait for what came naturally. Tsunade shivered before she felt milk leave her breast, making her sigh as Naruto drank. Never thought I'd have to use the jutsu. Tsunade thought she had used a medical jutsu that was used mostly with royal families. A nurse-made jutsu that filled the female caster's bust with milk for the baby in their care. Normally it would fade away in a few hours, but since the milk was actually being drank from her bust, she would continue to produce milk until she weaned Naruto from it. Tsunade looked down at Naruto and smiled as she watched him feed. She already felt her heart warm at the sight of little Naruto and knew that she loved him. Kushina, Minato, neither of you have to worry about Naruto. The six of us will take great care of him. Outside, Rin and Shizune came upon a strange sight of Anko berating Jiraiya, who was on the ground nursing a large bump on his head. All while Orochimaru stood by looking ready to bust a gut laughing. What happened here? Rin asked. Tsunade-sama is currently feeding Naruto. So? Rin asked the teen. She's not using a bottle. Anko explained. Oh, Rin and Shizune said together. She used the nurse-made jutsu. Shizune said, making Anko nod while they looked down at Jiraiya. I'm guessing Iro-sen here tried to peep. Rin asked, making Anko nod. Aw man, are you really going to call me that, Rin? I had enough trouble trying to get Minato to not call me that. Then he got Kushina to say it. Next thing I know, Naruto is going to call me it. Be no more than you deserve, Jiraiya. Orochimaru said, making his teammate slump slightly. Soon Tsunade called and said it was okay to enter again as she had Naruto on her shoulder being burped. All of them knew that the next 13 years were going to be interesting. Time skip. 13 years. 7 figures were seen walking towards the gate of Konoha. The smaller of the two were arguing. Raymond. Dango. The other 5 sighed as they listened yet again as the two had the same argument. Raymond is the food of the gods, Ni-chan, how can you possibly think anything is better? And now 13-year-old Naruto asked Anko, who would not let the argument go. Because Dango is the food of the gods and anyone that says different is speaking blasphemy. Anko answered, making the two glare at one another. I swear this argument has been going on since Naruto was 8. Tsunade said to her teammates, who nodded. In the time since they had started to care for and raise Naruto, he had become a prodigy to beat all prodigy. The kid was now a good 5'11", an. Feet equals inches equals taller than most of those his age, but then again having the greatest medic in the world for a mom, you know you're going to be eating healthy. In that time Naruto had also gone through training regimens designed not only by his mother and two uncles, but his Nichans as well. Tsunade focused on chakra control and started training him since he was 4 to the point where he had a near perfect control over his chakra, as well as the ability to identify and dispel genjutsu, since his reserves made it near impossible for him to use the art. Orochimaru focused on Taijutsu since his was the best of the group. However, when it became clear that Naruto wasn't meant for the snake style, he started to teach him different styles until he found one that worked. Jiraiya focused on his ninjutsu. Everyone had been shocked to learn that Naruto had 4 nature affinities: wind, water, earth, and fire. While Jiraiya could help him with earth and fire, Rin had to take water and scrolls from Suna for wind. Speaking of Rin, she had helped Shizune teach Naruto the means to become a medic in the field to be a help to his teammates, including teaching him about poisons and using senbon needles. Anko had mainly helped Naruto with traps and tracking, especially when it became clear the two had a love for pranks. The twin katana on Naruto's back were built in Iron Country when Naruto turned 10, and the boy was a natural with the weapons. Especially when it came to Kushina's style that had gotten her the nickname the Crimson Fury of Konoha. Her style was called Raging Whirlpool. Speaking of Kushina, Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya sat down with Naruto and told him all about his origins. At first all of them were worried about his reaction until he stood up and hugged Tsunade close. "She may have birthed me, but you raised me, mama," Naruto had said. Tsunade had tears leaking out of her eyes as she clutched the then 11-year-old Naruto to her tightly. Of course she didn't realize she had forced his face into her bust and was smothering him until Rin, Anko, and Shizune yelled the fact to her. Jiraiya had been jealous and asked Naruto how it felt getting a supercharged punch from his female teammate. The three Sannin also decided to teach Naruto some of their own styles and jutsu. While the Hibi Taijutsu style didn't fit Naruto at all, the Kenjutsu style worked wonders with Naruto, especially when he used his twin blades. After signing the Toad contract, Jiraiya taught Naruto some of the combination jutsu that came from working with pairs of certain toads. While Tsunade taught Naruto how to use her superior strength, something Jiraiya had feared most when it was used against him by both mother and son for being his usual perverted self. Although there was one time when Tsunade wasn't seen in the best of light by Naruto's Nichans. When Naruto had been 8, Tsunade had brought Naruto with her to a casino to play a few rounds, while everyone else had been busy. The first game Naruto played had been the slots, since it was just an innocent game. Imagine Tsunade's surprise when he won big at the slots. At first she just thought it was a coincidence and had him try a different slot machine, which he won again. Tsunade became suspicious as she took his winnings and turned them into chips, letting him pick another game. Naruto decided to play one of the dice games and had doubled his money again and again till he had almost 20 million ryo before he decided to play a different game. All the time Tsunade was coaching him about how to place bets, and that big risk got big rewards when it came to gambling, but not so much in real life. "Tsunade-sama." 3 young voices cried out, making Tsunade flinch. While Naruto headed to the roulette table, she looked behind her and saw Rin, Shizune, and Anko glaring at her. "How could you bring a child in here?" Shizune demanded. "We were all busy." "That doesn't matter," Anko called out. "What kind of example are you setting for Naru-chan?" Rin demanded to know. "He's up to 20 million ryo," Tsunade said in her defense. "I don't." Shizune paused at that. 20 million ryo. The 3 yelled together once the information had been processed. "Yep, now we just got. Where did he go?" Tsunade asked, looking around until she saw Naruto at the roulette table. "No more bets," the ball roller said, making the 4 women rush up to the table. "Naru-chan," the 4 called, making him turn. "Hey Ka-sen Wani-chan," Naruto said in his usual cheerful voice. "What did you do?" Tsunade asked. "I put it all on 16 red. Like you said, Ka-sen, big risk gets big rewards," Naruto said as the ball started to roll, making Tsunade curse her choice of words while the 3 women with her glared at her. They all watched the nail-biting action as the ball rolled and rolled before the ball started to slow down. "I can't look," Shizune said, covering her face. Rin turned away too, waiting for the result. Anko and Tsunade covered their faces as well when it looked like the bank would win. "Winner 16 red. 16 red has broken the bank." The 4 women uncovered their faces and looked, seeing that the ball was stopped in the 16 red block. At night, when they arrived back at their hotel and saw Jiraiya and Orochimaru looking at the stunned faces while Naruto was just smiling away, clutching a scroll to his chest. "What happened?" Jiraiya asked. "Tsunade-sama decided to take Naruto to a casino," Shizune said, making both men pale, wondering how much of their hard-earned money had just been flushed down the toilet. "So how fast do we need to get out of town?" Jiraiya asked as the 2 stood up. "We don't," Anko said, making the 2 blink in confusion. "I thought Tsunade-sama wasn't the one that gambled. Naru-chan was." Rin said. Now both men were completely shocked at that news. So what's the damage? Jiraiya asked. Neri-chan won 750 million ryo. Tsunade said as she sat down and waited. The combined A was rumored to have been heard all the way in Konoha. Which would have been impressive since they were close to wave country. Needless to say Tsunade was in the proverbial doghouse at least until the time when the women caught Jiraiya trying to take Naruto with him to help his research for his literature. However, the real shock came for everyone when Naruto had been 6 at the time the group was in Oni country where one of Jiraiya's contacts was based. While there Anko and Shizune had taken Naruto to a park so he could play with the other children, however they were shocked when 4 AIM shinobi appeared. Keep the two women busy while I grab Senju. The Jonin yelled, rushing forward. Anko and Shizune prepared to fight to protect their little brother, only for him to clap his hands together before slamming them down. Suddenly thousands of wooden vine-like objects appeared out of nowhere and wrapped around all 4 Jonin and lifted them into the air where they struggled against them. Anko and Shizune looked at Naruto in complete shock. You will not hurt my one-chance. Naruto had said to the men. Mokuton. Anko and Shizune said together in surprise. So this is why Hanzo-sama is so interested in the brat. The lead Jonin asked as he tried to cut himself free. Neri-chan, go and find your mother, we'll handle this. Anko said, making Naruto nod before she kissed his forehead. You did good, Naruto. She whispered, making him smile before he ran off. We can't let them live, Shizune. Anko said, making the girl nod. But we should wait until Naruto comes back with Tsunade-sama or else he'll believe he was the one that killed them. Shizune said, making Anko nod in agreement. The two Kunoichi didn't have to wait long before Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Rin arrived at the scene. Tsunade holding Naruto in her arms. Here we were worrying about people in Kumo when we forgot about the villages like AIM. Jiraiya said. See, Kachan, I told you I had wrapped up the bad guys. Naruto said, pointing at the men struggling against the wooden vines holding them up. Yes, you did, Neri-chan. You did a very good job. Tsunade said while surprised to see Mokuton again. She let it go, more focused on the appearance of 3 ninja, determined to kidnap her son. Shizune, Rin, take Neri-chan away from here, he doesn't need to see this. Tsunade said as Shizune walked up and took her little brother in her arms while she and Rin left, leaving the rest to stare at the 3 Jonin. Anko, you're the best interrogator here, find out when Hanzo became interested in my Sachi. Tsunade said, making Anko nod. About 2 hours later the 4 Konoha shinobi arrived back at home to find Naruto taking his nap while Rin and Shizune were on alert. Did you learn anything? Rin asked. Danzo wanted to take Naruto, but he hadn't given his shinobi any reason why. They thought that it was because he has Mokuton after seeing him use it. Anko said. Have they been silenced? Rin asked, making Orochimaru nod. A few of mine and Anko's summons enjoyed the snack. Orochimaru said, making Rin shiver at the idea. Things just got a whole lot more complicated for Naruto. Anko said, looking at her sleeping brother. Naruto's Mokuton training was done in complete secret, hidden away from everyone but his guardians. But the promise that he would keep it hidden away until something happened where he had no choice but to use the ability to save himself or his comrades. Tsunade was the only one dragging their feet, figuratively, that is, about returning to Konoha. She hated the idea of her Sachi becoming a shinobi and had been secretly hoping that he would rather become a medic like her because of his training. When she learned that he planned to one day become Hokage, a title only able to be earned by a shinobi or even a former shinobi, her hopes had been shattered. I still say we should just stay on the road. Tsunade grumbled, making her teammate sigh yet again. You know that if you tried to force that on him, Naruto would just run off and sign up before you could stop him. At least this way you can keep an eye on him when he's in the village. Jiraiya said once again. Tsunade grunted, looking away. Plus keep the fangirls away once they hear about who he is. Orochimaru joked, making Tsunade go rigid before an aura gathered around her filled with darkness. Jiraiya sighed. You just had to say that, didn't you? Orochimaru just looked at him in confusion as Jiraiya covered his ears. Never. Tsunade yelled, making Orochimaru jump in surprise at the sudden yell. Tsunade blurred and was suddenly crushing Naruto against her chest, holding him so tightly both men were sure they heard bones cracking. No one will ever be good enough for my Neri-chan. Those hussies won't take him away. Tsunade shouted as Naruto cried out in pain as his bones were strained even farther as she hugged him closer. Tsunade-sama. You're crushing Naruto. 3 female voices cried out, making her blink and look down to see a wide-eyed Naruto, his mouth open showing his pain. Oh Kami. I'm sorry, Neri-chan. Tsunade said, crushing Naruto against her again, making him cry out again in pain. He suddenly turned into a log that splintered. Neri-chan? Tsunade asked as she looked over and saw Rin and Shizune already at work to heal Naruto, who was lying on the ground twitching in pain every once in a while. Who's the idiot who brought up Naruto being popular with women again? Anko demanded. Jiraiya, wanting to spare himself the pain, ratted out Orochimaru faster than you could say the word rat. Anko glared at her sensei, who just chuckled slightly before he was at the receiving end of an older sister's righteous fury. Jiraiya sighed, happy that he wasn't on the end of such a beating, only to get a feeling of dread as he looked at Tsunade to see her glaring at him. "I didn't even do anything," Jiraiya said in fear. "But you were the first one to put that thought into my head," Tsunade yelled before she descended on Jiraiya, who joined his teammate in a beating from an angry woman. This one, however, a mother instead of a sister. Eventually, after Naruto, Orochimaru and Jiraiya were healed, they continued on their journey to Konoha. "Ah-chan, one of these days you're going to snap me in half," Naruto yelled as he stretched out his stiff and sore bones. "I'm sorry, Naru-chan," Tsunade said, looking down at the ground as they walked. "I don't have bones made of steel, Ka-chan. They break just as easily as your own," Naruto yelled again, clearly irritated that he had once again been turned to mush because his mother had overreacted to things again. "And you?" Naruto shouted, turning and pointed at his uncles, who both pointed at themselves in innocence. "You both know how she reacts to certain types of jokes." Naruto yelled at them both, making them slump slightly, realizing the truth of his words. "When are the three of you going to learn to control yourselves?" Naruto scolded, making all three hang their heads down, storm clouds gathering around them. Naruto sighed before turning in a huff and walked off, not caring about the fact that his sisters were trying desperately to not let loose their laughter. "Three of the mightiest shinobi in the world shamed by a 13-year-old boy," Anko said, trying to control herself, but it was hard with Rin snorting her laughter. "Do you think we can get Naruto to really lay into them if we told him the truth about what happened to his raiment stash?" Shizune asked, making all three Sannin look up at her in fear, all going white as possible. Quite a feat for Orochimaru, who was already the same color as chalk. "You wouldn't?" they begged together. If there was one thing you never messed with when it came to Naruto, it was his favorite dish of noodles and broth. However, the three Sannin had accidentally done so when they had been in charge of packing their gear. Orochimaru accidentally dropped the scroll and it rolled away. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru tried to stop it from rolling away. Their efforts, however, were in vain as the scroll fell into a rushing river and already gone by the time they reached said river. Anko, Rin, and Shizune had seen everything and knew that Orochimaru only dropped the scroll because he was in the middle of a three-way argument between himself, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. Blackmail. The three elder sisters thought together but had gone along with the three as they explained to Naruto that the scroll probably got lost in their haste to pack. He had accepted it after they promised him to replenish it. However, if he were to ever learn the truth, all three feared what he would do to them. "Did you say something, Shizune-chan?" Naruto asked, making the three Sannin look like they were three completely white figures. Even their clothing had gone white. The three slowly turned and saw Naruto was nearby, but not close enough to have heard anything clearly. "Just talking with your Ka-chan Atoto," Shizune said, making Naruto nod as he moved away, making the three sigh in relief as their color returned. Ultimate blackmail. The three younger women thought together, evil smirks crossing their faces that sent shivers down the spines of the Sannin, who turned around only to see the young women standing there with innocent looks on their faces. "We're doomed," Jiraiya hissed to his teammates, who nodded as they walked to catch up with Naruto. Chapter 2. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed as he worked at his desk, which was once again buried under paperwork. "Merciful Kami, I beg of you, please spare me of this evil," Hiruzen yelled out, tired of constantly battling the enemy before him. An answer came at the sound of a knock, making Hiruzen look at the door before looking at the sky again. "You work fast. Thank you. Come in," Hiruzen said the last one aloud. The door opened, revealing Nico, one of his most trusted Anbu captains. "Yes, Nico, what can I do for you?" Okage-sama, the guards at the gate, announced that they have seen the Sannin walking towards the gate and will be arriving soon, Nico said with a bow at the end. "Thank you, Nico, I shall go down and greet them personally. Please go and collect my son as well as some of the other Jonin, especially Kakashi. Tell him that Rin is returning. He won't be late for the first time in years," Hiruzen said, making Nico bow again before she vanished in a cloud of smoke. Hiruzen happily stood up and made his way towards the doors and headed outside wearing his robes and hat, knowing his Anbu guard were already following him. At the gate, Hiruzen was happy to see his son Azuma, Kushina Yuhi, the Jinjutsu mistress of Konoha, a few members of the Shinobi Council, and surprisingly Kakashi as well. The son of Konoha's White Fang was notorious for being late to anything he's invited to. Hiruzen greeted many of those that were waiting with him until he saw in the distance the shape of a traveling group that made him smile. He recognized his students with no trouble, even if they had aged slightly since he last saw two of them. Rin wasn't hard to see either since her purple Inuzuka marks were showing. Shizune wasn't hard to spot either since she looked a bit like her uncle Dan, and finally Anko and Naruto weren't hard to figure out either since they were arguing about Dango and Ramen. A pastime of theirs according to the report sent to him from his students. Hiruzen laughed, remembering similar arguments between Kushina and her friend Makoto Uchiha. Once they arrived at the gate, everyone bowed with Rin and Shizune saying. Hokage-sama, his students just say. Sensei. Naruto and Anko however just said Hokage-jiji, making a few gasp at the disrespect, but Hiruzen just laughed it off. It is good to see you all once more. However, I am a little out of date on whom the last member of your company is. Tsunade. Hiruzen said, acting as if he didn't know who Naruto is, which actually just made Tsunade smile as she placed both of her hands on his shoulders. Sensei, everyone. I am pleased to introduce you all to my son. Naruto Senju. As soon as the words left her mouth, everyone went bug-eyed, even the Sandaime. Everyone asked once the knowledge was properly processed. Told you they were going to react this way, Haim. Jiraiya said, shaking his head as he watched the clan heads look at Naruto closely. Sachi, why don't you say hello? Tsunade said, making Naruto nod as he bowed before the clan heads. Hello, my name is Naruto Senju, it's nice to meet you all. Once the clan heads had shaken off their shock, they returned the bow and introduced themselves as well. Once that was done, Hiruzen woke from his shock and looked at his blonde student. Tsunade, this is one giant of a surprise. The elder Hokage said, making Tsunade laugh slightly. Well, Naruto had actually been a surprise as well, but one of the greatest I have ever had. Tsunade said, watching Naruto talk with Tsume and Yuzuka, laughing slightly when he started petting her partner Kuromaru. Although the tough old dog tried not to react, the slight turn of his head told Tsunade that he was enjoying himself nonetheless. Anyway, Sensei, we have returned because Naruto has expressed an interest in becoming a shinobi. Tsunade said, making Hiruzen look surprised once more, but beamed after the shock wore off. Well, let's go to my office where we can talk about his training and see if there are any classes graduating soon. Hiruzen said as Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru made to follow, while Rin started talking with Kakashi. Where have you been all these years? Kakashi asked in a slightly lazy tone, but Rin knew he was worried. I was on a mission for Hokage-sama that involved staying with the Sannin. I would have written, but it was a classified mission. I understand, Rin, I'm just happy that you're home. Kakashi said, smiling, making Rin chuckle slightly as she and her remaining teammate wandered off to catch up. Nai-chan. Anko called out as she wrapped her arms around her best friend whom she hadn't seen in 13 years. Kurenai, well surprised to be once more attacked by her friend, just relaxed as she returned the hug. Nice to see you haven't changed much in 13 years, personality-wise, Anko. Anko just looked at her friend and did what any adult would have done, she stuck her tongue out like a child. Kurenai laughed once Anko was back on the ground. She smiled as the two wandered off to talk and catch up. Shizune, not having anyone that she was close to in the village, took Naruto around the village so he could see what it had to offer. Nii-chan, why didn't you go off with anyone? Well, because I, unlike your other Nii-chans, don't have anyone waiting around for me. My family passed away and I left with Lady Tsunade before I made any real friends. Plus I thought you liked hanging out with me, Naruto-kun. Shizune asked, adding a fake sad face like she was about to cry, but Naruto didn't buy it. I do, Shizune, but you know I'm not going to fall for that trick. You and Anko Nichan took care of that, remember? After the question was asked, Shizune inwardly cursed since she and Anko had been the ones responsible for training Naruto to withstand a woman's charms. Still can't believe Lady Tsunade ordered us to give him seduction resistance training at his age. Shizune thought before she looked around and saw the amount of women ranging in age from 9 to 30, plus looking at Naruto. Some had greed, some wonderment, but most had lust burning in their eyes. Then again, maybe she wasn't just being paranoid. Shizune thought as she followed Naruto into a raiment stand and sighed, knowing most likely what was going to happen. So let me see if I have this right. You adopted Naruto, making him a senju in order to throw off suspicion of who his parents really are. Hiruzen asked his students while in his sealed office where no one could hear them. Actually, Sensei, he does have senju blood in him somewhere down the lines. Tsunade said, making Hiruzen raise an eyebrow. What makes you say that? Because the boy can use Mokuton. Jiraiya said, making Hiruzen's jaw drop and his pipe fall out of his mouth and hit the ground. Couldn't have said it easier, could you, Jiraiya? Orochimaru asked, making his teammate laugh slightly as he scratched the back of his head nervously. Mokuton? Are you sure about that? Hiruzen asked, now understanding why they requested that the meeting be in complete privacy. Yes, Sensei, the first time we saw Naruto use it had been to defend Anko and Shizune from an attack by some jonin from AIM. Orochimaru said, making Hiruzen sigh. Hanzo? The three Sannin nodded at their sensei's words. Yes. Naruto was able to make wooden vine-like objects grow out of the ground and capture the 4 jonin before they could attack. After that he was training the ability in secret, however he needs to look at his great-grandfather's or great-great-granduncle's notes. At Jiraiya's words, Hiruzen looked up at his student. Do you think he's a direct descendant of the Shodaime? Either that or the Nindaime, it's the only explanation towards why he can do what he can do. Jiraiya said, making Hiruzen look thoughtful. Have you had his blood tested? Hiruzen asked Tsunade. We were never in a place I could trust to get the work done. Here I can run the test and see the truth, but to be honest I really don't care. Tsunade said, making Hiruzen raise an eyebrow once more. He's my son, sensei. No matter what any test says, he will always be my Naru-chan. Tsunade said, making Hiruzen smile. I see you took to motherhood quite well, Tsunade. Hiruzen said, making everyone smile. She was a natural, although it does seem she's passed her gambling addiction off to her son. As soon as the words left Jiraiya's mouth, he was sent flying from one of Tsunade's punches. Orochimaru was able to dodge the flying body of his teammate by moving back. Do I want to know? Hiruzen asked his eldest student, who just shook his head no. All you need to know is that Naruto has the exact opposite luck with gambling that Tsunade has. Orochimaru said, making Hiruzen nod as he watched Jiraiya try and pull his head out of the wall. Is there anything else I should know about Naruto? Tsunade and Orochimaru started to give him the training background Naruto had been through, which Jiraiya added to once he freed his head. Thanks for the ramen. Naruto called as he and Shizune walked out of Ichiraku's stand with a beaming chef and chef's daughter. Shizune was just happy that Naruto used some of his latest winning to pay for the meal. She shivered to think what Lady Tsunade would have done if they would have had to pay out of pocket for Naruto's latest ramen feast. Once they had finished with the meal, Shizune started to show Naruto towards the Senju compound where they, along with his mother and herself, would be living from now on. So this is the place Hashimura Ajisan built, huh? Naruto asked once they were inside and saw that most of the house was built just like any house or wall that Naruto created with Mokuton. Tomorrow I'll check out Hashimura Ajisan's library and see if I can find his jutsu notes. Naruto thought as he moved towards the room that would be his for the duration of their stay in Konoha to unpack his things, trying to get used to the idea of staying in one place longer than a year. His mother arrived soon after Naru-chan. Naruto sighed as he heard her once more call him by the same name she did back when he was a baby. Ah-chan, when are you going to stop using chan in my name? I'm not a kid anymore. Naruto asked as he walked downstairs the same time Shizune walked into the room from the kitchen. Naruto, no matter how old you get, you'll still be my Naru-chan. However, having been through something like that for a part of my life, I will no longer call you that in public the day you wear a Konoha forehead protector. Tsunade said, making Naruto sigh, but didn't argue, thinking that was the best he was going to get from his mother. So what did Jiji tell you? Naruto asked once the family sat down in the living room. The next group to go through the exams is already done. Luckily our timely arrival actually helped sensei out. The numbers of the class were uneven and there aren't any promising genin on the reserves list. Tsunade said, mostly grumbling about the last part since it meant that Naruto would be jumping right into the shinobi program instead of having to wait a year to do so. Anyone that stands out? Naruto asked, making Tsunade snort. Every single heir of the clans are in the class, even the Kurama clan. Tsunade said, making Naruto blink before he laughed aloud. Well, won't they be surprised to learn that the heir of yet another clan is joining them? Naruto asked as Shizune laughed as well, covering her mouth with her sleeve. They won't be meeting up again till 3 days from now. Luckily we were able to move the teams around so we could place you and still keep people happy. Although you may want to watch out for the Uchiha. Sasuke is his name. Naruto looked at his mother. The only survivor of the massacre. Why should I watch out for him? Naruto asked while on the road they had all learned about the Uchiha massacre that was caused by Itachi Uchiha, who only left one person alive after it. Because Itachi was his older brother, and from what sensei tells me, he's hungry for the power that can help him get vengeance against Itachi. Tsunade explained to her son, who closed his eyes and sighed. Great, an Avenger. He's going to get his team killed with that kind of mindset. Naruto said, making Tsunade nod in agreement. After all, she had known a few people just like Sasuke during the Second Shinobi War and some of the Third. Anyone else really stand out? Naruto asked. The Nara is keeping his true mental capacities hidden, most likely because of his lazy nature. The Akimichi heir is kind-hearted but reacts just the same as any of his clan members to the tabooed word. Naruto nodded in understanding, remembering that one never uses a certain F-word around that clan. The Inuzuka is brash and a pervert who thinks he can snag any woman because he believes himself to be an alpha male. Naruto groaned at that, knowing that the kid would be trouble unless something was done about that. The Abiram was well an Abiram. Naruto and Shizune nodded their heads. Once there really was no other way to describe the bug user clan, since most were stoic and pretty much kept to themselves. The Hyuga wasn't what you'd expect. She's nervous and shy. From what sensei tells me, she has major self-confidence issues thanks to her clan constantly calling her weak. Naruto was surprised to hear this. Mostly when people thought of the Hyuga clan they thought of cold people that had sticks shoved so far up their asses that it would explain why they were so rigid. What about the Yamanaka heir? Heiress. She's one of the Uchiha's fangirls. At this both Naruto and Shizune groaned loudly. If there was one thing Naruto hated most was seeing a fangirl calling themselves a kunoichi. It gave people like his mother and his sisters bad names. Not to mention what it did to the reputation of all kunoichi in the world that actually focused on their careers. Great, one of the most prestigious clans in Konoha is in the hands of a fangirl. Naruto grumbled, making both his mother and sister nod in agreement with his words, both feeling sorry for Inoichi, the Yamanaka clan head. What about the Kurama? Shizune asked after a few minutes. She's sickly but passed the test mainly due to her scores in Genjutsu and her academic scores. Tsunade said, making Naruto nod. Her clan is famous for their skills with Genjutsu, so that's not surprising. He said, making both women nod in agreement before they all turned in for the night. However, not before Tsunade informed Naruto to be at the academy in 3 days, along with the room number and his new headband. You won't be considered a gen until after you're put on a team, so I will still call you Nari-chan when I can. Tsunade said, making Naruto roll his eyes and Shizune laugh as they all went into their rooms. Tsunade took the clan head's room before they all went to sleep. The next 3 days found Naruto inside the clan library, reading the notes of Hashirama Senju and his brother Tobirama Senju, his ancestors, while Tsunade took a sample of his blood to find out just how he was related to her family. She took the report to the Sandaime where he and the other Sannin waited to hear the report. He's Tobirama Uji's grandson. Tsunade said, making the 3 men look at her in shock. So that makes him your cousin. I didn't know Tobirama-sensei had a child, let alone that it was Minato. Hiruzen said as he smoked his pipe. Minato grew up an orphan. His mother died in the hospital after his birth before she could name him. The matron at the orphanage gave him the name Minato Namikaze. Jiraiya said, making the group nod in understanding. No wonder why he wants to be Hokage. His father, grandfather and great-uncle were Hokage as well. Orochimaru said, making the group chuckled slightly. The blood of leaders does flow through him, but it doesn't explain why he can use Mokuton when no one else could. Hiruzen said. Actually, it makes perfect sense. Orochimaru said, making everyone look at him. We know that in the past a lot of bloodlines weren't stable and would take a few generations to stabilize. Sandaime-sama's Mokuton abilities could have been just like that, making it so that either his or the Nindaime's grandchildren could use Mokuton. Meaning Naruto is the first of many future Mokuton using Senju. Orochimaru said, making Hiruzen nod, unable to argue with that logic. Where is he right now? Hiruzen asked. The Senju library. He's been reading up on some of Oji-san and Uji-san's jutsu to learn about them. Tsunade explained, making the group smile. It is an ninjutsu prodigy, probably have them down in no time. Jiraiya said, making his teammates laugh. Not to mention he's remarkable with his katana. Orochimaru added, making the Gama Sennin nod in agreement. At the end of the 3 days in a room in the Ninja Academy of Konoha, a Chunin by the name of Iruka Yamino looked at his class of newly graduated genin, happy to see them all ready for the future. All that was left was give them their team assignments. However, before he could start, a knock at the door made everyone look to see an Anbu with a cat mask walk into the room and hand Iruka 2 different papers. The man looked at them in surprise as Nico turned and left Iruka's side and cleared his throat. Class, it seems that before we get started giving you your team placements, the Hokage has changed the teams and added an additional member to your ranks. Iruka said, and wasn't surprised when he heard every single student comment on the fact that someone was joining them after not having been through the academy. Shut up. He yelled, using his demon head jutsu, instantly getting silence in the room. This person may not have been in the academy, but he was traveling with his mother, sisters, and uncles, and they were his teachers. Hokage-sama believes that they are ready to join the ranks. Iruka said. A few people grumbled, still a few were interested on who the person was, but one in the room just looked out the window, ignoring anything. Whoever they are, they'll just get in my way like everyone else here. The black-haired Uchiha heir thought. There was a knock at the door moments later. Enter. Iruka said as the door opened, allowing a young man with long blonde spiky hair to enter into the room. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Some were wondering if he could actually use the twin katana on his back, some wondered who he was, having never seen him before, while most of the female members of the class just looked at him blushing. Hello. He said, bowing politely, making Iruka smile slightly. Why don't you introduce yourself to the class? Iruka suggested, making the blonde nod as he looked at the class before him. My name is Naruto Senju. It's very nice to meet all of you. Naruto said, taking a bow while almost everyone looked at him in complete shock. Even Sasuke was surprised, but instead of showing it, settled for glaring at the blonde. SS Senju? Like Sandaime-sama? A girl with pink hair asked Naruto to smile and nod. Yep, that's my great-grandfather. I'm the son of Tsunade Senju of the legendary Sannin. With that announcement, the room still looked at him in shock. No way, the son of one of the greatest kunoichi in the world. Sakura Haruno asked herself, almost not believing it. Troublesome. The Nara heir thought, looking at Naruto while sitting next to his friend Choji Akimichi. He's pretty dreamy, maybe even more than Sasuke-kun. Ino thought, looking Naruto up and down like a piece of meat, not bothering to hide her interest. Senju, huh? He might actually be worth fighting. Sasuke thought, glaring at the heir of the one family thought of as royalty in Konoha, even above his own clan. Iruka shook his head after a few moments to clear his thoughts before he motioned to Naruto to take a seat. Naruto walked up and took one of the only available seats next to the Hyuga heiress. Meanwhile in the office of the Hokage many of the future Jonin sensei were looking into the Hokage's crystal ball, some with shock written on their faces. "He seems polite." Kakashi said. The Hokage chuckled slightly. "But the sister like Shizune, I'm not surprised. She most likely didn't want Naruto to inherit my student's quirks." Hiruzen said, making a few look at him wondering what he meant. "Is there really anything any of us here can teach him? I mean, he was raised and trained by all three Sannin." Kurenai said, making a few in the office nod. "That may be true, but that doesn't mean he won't need guidance out there, not to mention protection from those that would try and kidnap him." Everyone looked at the elderly Hokage and listened as he told them an edited version of how when Naruto was a child, AIM had tried to take him from his family. Leaving out just how the enemy was dealt with but telling enough so they all knew that his life well-being had been in danger. "So what are the teams looking like?" Kakashi asked the village leader, who lifted up different folders and handed them out. "These are your teams, there will be no discussion on them at all." Hiruzen said when he noticed a few looking disappointed and one very surprised. "You're all dismissed." Hiruzen told them and watched everyone but Kurenai leave the office. "Can I help you, Kurenai?" he asked the rookie Jonin. "Hokage-sama. If you're wondering why your team is different than the one you requested, it's because myself and my students rearranged all the teams. Tsunade was adamant that you be the one to watch over Naruto," Hiruzen said, interrupting the woman known as Konoha's Ice Queen. "Why me?" Kurenai asked, not wanting to question such a strong woman, but she herself was just a rookie Jonin only in her second year with the rank. Naruto's genjutsu skills are almost non-existent due to the fact that he has massive chakra reserves. True, my students got his control down to the point where he could use it, but the art was never any of his watcher's fortes. His mother, Rin, and Shizune are medical ninja. Anko, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru are mainly focused on ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, and kinjutsu respectively. They knew enough to help him identify when he is in one and how to break it, however. That's not always enough. Kurenai finished for the elderly leader, who nodded. "You are the foremost expert in genjutsu, Kurenai, and can help Naruto in that regard better than anyone else inside the village. The rest of Naruto's training is already being taken care of. He along with your two other students will make a fine team." Kurenai nodded as she left to join the rest of her fellow Jonin to retrieve her students. Back at the academy everyone listened as Iruka told them about their teams. Team 7 will be Kiba Inuzuka, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha under Kakashi Haddock. Naruto almost felt bad for Kiba when he heard the girls start screeching out about true love pulls through. Fucking hell, Koch-an told me that the Harunos were famous for females having an almost banshee-like voice, but I didn't think she was serious. Naruto thought as he looked over at the heir of the Ninken partnered clan, only to see him repeatedly slamming his head against the table, moaning out why. Again and again. "Sakura, shut up and sit down," Iruka said, using his demon head jutsu again, making said girl instantly take her chair once more, looking slightly scared. Teammate will be Shino Aburam, Hinata Hyuga, and Naruto Senju under Kurenai Yuhi. Naruto was slightly surprised at the way the team was built. The Hyuga, I understand, to handle the Taijutsu portion of the team, and her Byakugan could be a great help. The Aburam I know are mainly focused on tracking and capturing their enemies with their "oh I get it now." Naruto thought, ignoring Iruka as he continued to announce teams. Hinata is most likely nothing but a close-range fighter with her Taijutsu, however, with her lack of confidence she's bound to hesitate when it comes to attacking her enemies, which can be deadly in the field. The Aburam, well-focused and logical, are mostly nothing but long-distance fighters with their insects and hardly ever get in close. The team would need another Taijutsu-based close-range fighter to help cover the problems. If they added the Inuzuka they could have made a good tracking team, however the three clans work together so often that every enemy would guess or know parts of it. If they added the Akimichi they could have covered the problem, but the Akimichi techniques are slow and easily dodged when there's no guarantee that the enemy is captured or unable to move. But if you add in an Injutsu Kinjutsu Fuinjutsu specialist with almost the same strength as my Koch-an, you get a squad that covers all the bases. Hinata covering Taijutsu and Genjutsu, with Shino handling the enemies out of mine or Hinata's reach, and me as the protector heavy hitter, we could not only surprise the people we're likely to face, but the most experienced Jonin. Sounds like Orochimaru Ajisan's work. Naruto smirked before he looked up as the doors opened and 8 Jonin walked into the room, making Naruto notice that one is missing, that is before remembering what Rin told him about Kakashi Haddock. Since he didn't see a man with silver-gray gravity-defying hair with his handband covering his left eye, he knew who was missing, and that Team 7 had a bit of a wait before them. Team 10, come with me. Naruto looked and saw a man with messy black hair and a short beard with a cigarette in his mouth and a white sash around his waist, with the kanji for fire on it. He knew who he was. That's Gigi's eldest son Asuma Sarutobi, and that sash means that at one point or another he was one of the Fire Daimyo's 12 guardians, he's bound to be good with his choice. Naruto thought as he watched the second generation of the In Shikacho move towards him as they left. Not a bad idea, to be honest. The three families work so well together that it would be a shame not to have them team up again. Naruto thought before a woman with long black hair and red eyes called out. "Teammate, you're with me." Naruto rose up and followed Shino and Hinata towards the woman, but he paused and looked at Kiba. Kakashi Haddock is infamous for almost always being 3 hours late to whatever meeting he goes to. You might want to find something to occupy your time while you wait. Kiba blinked in surprise, but then saw that Naruto looked over at Sakura and Sasuke before looking back. "And you might want to invest in some earplugs," Naruto said before leaving, making Kiba want to laugh. Not even around those two a day and already knows about Sakura's banshee ways. The Inyazuka thought before he looked and saw a book on his desk. He looked and saw Naruto looking over his shoulder and winked before leaving with his team. Kiba picked up the book and almost busted a gut when 2 pairs of earplugs fell off of it as well, but he relaxed when he saw the book was filled with different weapons and surprisingly weapons that can be used by Ninkin. "That was a very kind thing you did for Kiba Senju-san," Shino said as they walked, making Naruto look at him. What do you mean, Shino-kun?" Hinata asked with a stutter. "As we left, Senju-san left a book along with some earplugs for himself and Akamaru has Ninkin," Shino said with his monotone-like voice. Theme 7 is traditionally based, thus the Rookie of the Year, which I'm guessing is the Uchiha, the Kunoichi of the Year, which is Haruno most likely because of book smarts, and the Dober dead last, which is Kiba. This tradition seems to have carried on since my Kachan's days as a genin, and since this has worked so well in the past, Orochimaru Ajusan probably didn't see a reason to change this. Naruto said, making the two genin wonder what he was talking about. The Uchiha strikes me as an ninjutsu specialist, and we all know Kiba's family is almost completely taijutsu based with their Ninkin partners. If Kakashi can break Haruno of her fangirl ways, she would most likely become the Jinjutsu medical ninjutsu specialist, making them a good frontline team. However, the Inyazuka are well known in the world, so it wouldn't hurt for Kiba to experiment with different fields. I know he won't go with ninjutsu because it goes against what he's been raised with and he doesn't seem the subtle type for illusions. Leaving only 2 possible fields open to him, Kinjutsu or Fuinjutsu, I gave him a book filled with different weapon choices that even Akamaru could use in the future because like I said, he doesn't strike me as the subtle type. Naruto finished his explanation, making Shino raise an eyebrow. Hinata looked thoughtful, while Kurenai felt surprised that a genin could think of all of that just after meeting all of his fellow genin. "What did you mean earlier when you said Orochimaru-sama didn't see a reason to change the format of Team 7? Shino asked, making Kurenai blink and wonder as well. "Our team tipped me off to the fact that someone other than Hokage and Jonin helped build them. My guess is Kurenai-sensei originally wanted Kiba on the team instead of me to create a tracking team," Naruto asked, looking at Kurenai, who nodded slowly at the question. The fact that she didn't get that team shows one of 2 things, number 1 being that my uncle Orochimaru helped build the teams, mainly because with me added this team went from a tracking team to a tracking assault team. Number 2 would be the fact that almost all of the Jonin begged to have me on their team because of my name and who was responsible for my earlier training, except for Kurenai-sensei, who was confidant in her choice for a team. "I'm going with the first because the build-up is sneaky, almost snake-like," Naruto said. Shino and Hinata looked at one another before they couldn't help but nod at Naruto's logic, while Kurenai was smiling and mentally chuckling, knowing that Orochimaru would actually find it funny that his Ikshi, nephew, of sorts had figured him out. "That's a very logical argument, Senju-san, and I agree with your assessment," Shino said. "Please call me Naruto. We're going to be teammates, no need to be so formal, Shino," Naruto said as the team continued to walk until they entered into a tea shop and took a table. "Well, now that we're at the location that I wanted us to head to, I believe it's time we get to know one another better. I'll start. My name is Kurenai Yuhi. I like Jinjutsu, my friends Anko, Hana and Yugao, and finally a good cup of tea. I dislike perverts, rapists, those who think Jinjutsu is a waste of time. My hobbies include trying to learn new Jinjutsu, spending time with my friends, and relaxing with a good book along with some good tea. My dream is to one day make people realize that Jinjutsu is just as important a shinobi art as the others." Naruto, Shino, and Hinata nodded in understanding of how they were also expected to introduce themselves. "Why don't you go next, Hinata?" Kurenai asked, making the Hyuga turn red and start to point her fingers together, something Naruto noticed was probably a nervous tic. "My name is Hinata Hyuga. My likes are cinnamon rolls, flowers, and then Miyamoto Hanabi. I dislike those who judge others, those who look down on others, and bitter foods. My hobbies are making him healing creams and pressing flowers. My dream is to one day be recognized by my family." Naruto listened to her dream and almost felt like cursing out the Hyuga family for causing a young girl to be so self-conscious. Kurenai sighed as well. She had hoped that by now that Hinata would be much better, but she really hoped that the girl's new teammates can help her with the issue in the future. I'll go next. My name is Shino Aburam. My likes include my family, my hive, and insects. My dislikes are those that would harm insects for no reason and those that would underestimate me. My hobbies include finding and studying different species of insects. My dream is to one day become a good clan head like my Otu-san. Naruto smiled slightly at the short and direct way Shino had gone about his introduction. Looks like I'm next. My name is Naruto Senju. My hobbies are my family, my summons, and learning new things. I dislike those that judge others without getting to know them, those that treat me with respect because of my family name, and those who are arrogant about what it means to be true shinobi. My hobbies include training, reading, and practicing different jutsu. My dream is to one day become Hokage like my Samsofu and my Adenouji, an. Great-grandfather great-granduncle respectively. The Shadame and Nidame and help bring a lasting peace to the elemental nations. Naruto said, making Hinata and Shino blink when they heard his dream and Kurenai to smile slightly. It's a good dream to have. I hope he achieves it. Kurenai thought before she woke herself from her thoughts. Very good. Now. This is the part where you tell us we aren't genin just yet, right? Naruto asked, making Kurenai blink before sighing. Your family didn't keep anything hidden, did they? She asked Naruto to shake his head no. Forgive me, but what do you mean, Naruto-san? Shino asked Naruto to look at him and Hinata. The academy graduation exam isn't the final test that is faced before one becomes a genin. It's just a guideline to see if one is ready to become a genin. The real final test is given by the jonin assigned to your team. They will evaluate you in some way and determine if you are in fact ready to be genin. This test also has a 66% failure rate. Naruto added, making Hinata and even Shino look surprised, but only Shino's body language gave it away. Naruto is correct. Tomorrow you three are to meet me at training ground 8 at exactly 7 AM. Don't be late. Kurenai said before she got up and left, leaving the team behind. Well, now I would suggest the three of us spending time together to better understand one another's abilities. Naruto suggested. Agreed. Shino said while Hinata nodded. A few hours later the group found a sour-looking Kiba sitting in the Ichiraku ramen stand. Let's see what's bothering him, maybe we can help. Naruto suggested, making his teammates nod as they walked in. Hello again, Kiba, what's bothering you? Naruto asked Kiba to look up and smile as he saw the Senju heir. Just wondering what Kakashi-sensei has in store for me, the emo and the banshee, tomorrow. By the way, thanks for the earplugs and book, it helped. Kiba then went on to tell them about the meeting with his sensei. Flashback. Kiba sat at the desk reading the book Naruto had left behind, while he and Akamaru enjoyed blissful silence. Thanks to the earplugs he left them, he looked up and saw Sakura pacing and looking like she was ready to yell. Thank you, Senju, I have no doubt I'd be listening to her right now if it wasn't for you. Kiba thought as he went back to his book. Soon the door opened and the silver-haired jonin poked his head in. Team 7? He asked. You're late. Sakura yelled, making the jonin and Sasuke flinch at the volume of her voice, but Kakashi was surprised when the Inyazuka didn't react at all. Strange, he should be clutching his ears in pain after that. Kakashi thought. Excuse me? He asked Kiba, but blinked when the boy just continued to read, making Kakashi blink again. He has amazing concentration for the so-called dope. The jonin thought. Kakashi then noticed that the Ninken had seen him and tapped its paw on Kiba's head, making the Inyazuka look up and see Akamaru point his paw towards the door. Kiba looked over and saw Kakashi before closing his book and raising his hands to his ears and pulled out the plugs. Sorry, were you saying something? Kiba asked, only to blink when Kakashi's face faltered. So this is how Guy feels when I do that? Kakashi asked himself before telling them to meet him on the roof. Flashback end. Then when we finish introductions he tells us about another test to become genin. As well, to meet him at training ground 7 at 6 in the morning and not to eat. Kiba said. Did he order you not to eat? Naruto asked. Kiba looked towards him while a thoughtful expression was on his face. No, not directly. Kiba said, shaking his head. Then it was more like a suggestion than an order, Kiba-san. Most likely he wants to hurt your chances of success. Shino said, making Naruto nod in agreement. So tomorrow eat a good breakfast before going to meet your team. Also, Kakashi isn't going to be there till 9, so either sleep in at home or get some extra sleep at the training ground to help better your chances. Naruto added. Also try and encourage Haruno and Uchiha to do the same if you go to the training grounds. Naruto suggested, making Kiba nod as he and Akamaru got up and made to go before he paused and looked at Naruto. Thanks for the book, it's really interesting. Naruto nodded before the Inyazuka heir ran off. Naruto watched him go before looking at his own team. Let's head to our homes and rest up. We've got a big day tomorrow. The two nodded as they all made their own way home, wondering if they were ready for the challenge ahead. Hana and Yuzuka walked into the home she, her little brother Kiba, and their mother Tsume the clan head shared along with their Ninken partners. As she walked past the living room she saw Kiba on the couch reading and didn't give him another glace as she walked. However, a few steps later she paused in mid-step before rushing back into the room and saw that Kiba really was reading a book with Akamaru on his head looking at it along with him. "I've got to be seeing things." The runt actually cracked open a book. Hana teased, but Kiba didn't rise to the bait like he usually did as he held the book up to Akamaru. "What do you think, buddy, that one?" he asked Akamaru, causing the pup to shake his head no while giving a small bark. "Yeah, you're right," Kiba said as he lowered the book again and turned the page, making Hana and even her Ninken partners, the Hamura triplets, blink in surprise. Before Hana could ask, Tsume appeared in the doorway. "Hey pups." "Hey mom." The brother and sister said. Kiba is still not looking up from his book. "What's that, Kiba?" Tsume asked. "It's a book that this new guy gave me. It's actually pretty good. It's filled with different types of weapons that Inuzuka can use, along with their Ninken partners. I'm trying to find the best one for Akamaru and me," Kiba said, looking up for the first time while Tsume and Hana both raised their eyebrows. "How can a weapon help you?" Hana asked Kiba to look at her and his book again. "Here, I'll show you," Kiba said, lifting the book up to the two feral-looking women. "These are called chakra claws. Both the Inuzuka and Ninken can wear on their hands or paws in Akamaru's case," Kiba added, making Akamaru bark in thanks. "Anyway, they can increase a person's reach. If you channel chakra through them you get better cuts than with your claws alone, and check this out," Kiba said, turning the page, letting both mother and daughter see the different versions of Passing Fang. "If you can learn to channel elemental chakra through them, you can make the Passing Fang or even the Fang over Fang even deadlier. Fire would make it burn as well as cut, lightning would allow you to pierce through hard skin or armors, and wind would add cutting power to them. Although they suggest not adding earth or water to the blades, mainly because earth isn't meant to be used in such a way and water is too hard to always have on hand to use," Kiba explained, making Tsume look at the design, actually intrigued by such a suggestion. "Are these the weapons you were thinking of getting?" Tsume asked Akamaru to bark happily while Kiba smiled. "So far it's the only one in there that Akamaru and I can agree on," he said, making Tsume nod. "Very well, you two shall test this idea out, that is if you pass Kakashi's test tomorrow," Tsume said, remembering how Kakashi hadn't ever passed a team. "Speaking of which, what did he tell you about the test?" "At survival training, that it has a 66% failure rate. He suggested not eating breakfast, but I'm gonna anyway, and he gave us the time 6 AM, but since he's known for always being 3 hours late, I'm gonna nap once we get there," Kiba said, making Tsume blink in surprise because her pup usually wasn't this thoughtful about things. "Who helped you understand that, runt, and gave you the book?" Hana asked, making Kiba glare at her before sighing. "Well, the test was Shino and the new guy Naruto Senju. Senju was also the one that gave me the book, as well as 2 pairs of earplugs for Akamaru and me. We got Haruno on our team," Kiba explained before either of them could ask, but that didn't stop either of them from hissing slightly in sympathy. "Wait, the Senju kid is the one that gave you that book?" Tsume asked after her son's words registered, making Kiba nod his head. Tsume said, gaining a thoughtful look. "What is a Ka-chan?" Hana asked, using the private suffix that they use at home. Kuramaru was the one to speak up. "We met the pup when he arrived with his family. And he was able to pet Kuramaru without any problems." Tsume interrupted, making the dog growl slightly in annoyance. "As I was saying. He is a very interesting young man, definitely alpha material," Kuramaru said, making the family look at him in surprise since the one-eyed half-wolf wasn't known to speak about someone like that. "Now that you mention it," Kiba said, making his mother and sister look at him and the thoughtful look on the young boy's face. "He did have an air about him. He kind of reminded me of old man Hokage, kind and gentle, but you could feel that he wasn't one to mess with or piss off," Kiba said, making Akamaru and Kuramaru nod. "How come I didn't notice this?" Tsume asked. "You, like many of your fellow clan heads, were focused upon his pedigree instead of the pup himself," Kuramaru said, making Tsume blink but mentally nodding in agreement. "Well, either way it doesn't matter, he's a rookie genin like Kiba and the rest of them if he passes his sensei's test," Hana said, walking away with the Himera triplets. The next day, Kurenai, Shino, and Hinata were surprised to find Naruto already in the clearing meditating. This was also the first time any of them noticed his clothing. He mainly wore a white traveler's cloak that covered his shoulders, chest, and arms, leading down to show off his boot-covered feet, the tops of which were covered by a pair of black Anbu pants. His katana hilts were poking out of little slots from his cloak, making it easy for him to grab them while still wearing said cloak. "Are you just going to stare at me all day, or are we gonna go through with this test?" Naruto asked, his eyes closed, making the three realize he knew they were there. "Sorry," Kurenai and Hinata said together while Shino didn't speak, but Naruto noticed the body language that said he was feeling slightly guilty. It's okay. So what kind of test can we expect, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asked as he stood up, his teammates joining his sides. The test is rather simple, you have to find me before 10 AM. If you're successful you pass and I'll treat you to lunch. If you fail it's back to the academy. Kurenai explained, making them nod before she performed hand signs and vanished from sight. Of course she would use a genjutsu to vanish on us. Naruto thought as he looked over at Hinata. Is she still in the clearing? He asked Hinata to close her eyes before opening them, activating her Byakugan, and looked around the area. No. We're the only ones here. Shino? I planted one of my bugs, it seems your plan was a success so far. The Abiram said, making Naruto smile as they followed the bug user out of the clearing. Kurenai was enjoying the quiet of the area she was in, waiting to see if her team actually found her or not, a small part of her actually wanting them to succeed. Unknown to the Jonin, 7 individuals were hidden in the area watching the test, wanting to see how the team did. Why couldn't we wait for the results like a normal family? Rin asked, looking at Anko and Shizune, who shushed her while the Sannin and the Sandaime smiled. You can't honestly tell me you don't want to see how Naruto Itoto does against Nai-chan? Anko whispered, making Rin sigh when she realized she couldn't deny the fact. He's not gonna fail, the better question is how much of his power is he gonna use? Orochimaru thought, looking and smiling when Naruto seemed to appear into the clearing. Looks like he found the area first, let's just see how he does with my traps. Kurenai thought, preparing to move as Naruto walked, accidentally tripping a masterful trap. With a bunch of kunai flying towards him, Kurenai watched as Naruto moved around the clearing, every step activating a trap of some kind, making her smile. Anko smirked and started to shake her head. Nai-chan must be getting cocky if she thinks this is actually gonna work on Naruto. She thought before the final trap actually caught Naruto, a random pit trap at that. Kurenai appeared at the top of the trap and looked down at the glaring Naruto. Should have waited for your teammates, Naruto. Only to blink in surprise when Naruto smirked. I did. He said before vanishing in a puff of smoke. A shadow clone? Kurenai asked herself in surprise. Back in a small area near the clearing, Naruto opened his eyes and looked at Shino and Hinata. Did my clone get them all, Hinata? He asked, making her nod and deactivate her bloodline. Then it's time to spring our own trap. Naruto said, making Shino nod as he sent a barrage of bugs to do their job. Kurenai, hearing the swarm, looked up and cursed when they came right at her. Damn it. Rookie mistake. She cried out in her mind before she started moving around, avoiding the swarm. Looks like the team planned for the test beforehand. Hiruzen said, smiling as he watched the Jonin avoid the bugs. Naruto is quite the strategist, sometimes he plans beforehand, but his ability to plan on the fly makes for quite the surprise. It's also quite the pain in the ass when it comes to shogi. Orochimaru muttered the last part, but his fellow Sannin and his sensei heard him anyway. Damn, these kids are better than I thought they would be. Kurenai thought, avoiding the swarm of chakra-eating bugs barely, only for her instincts to flare, making her jump up in time to miss a barrage of kunai that hit the spot where she had just been. So they came up with traps of their own, clever. Kurenai thought as she moved once more to avoid the danger. Kurenai found herself moving around looking ready to get away when suddenly Naruto and Hinata rushed into the clearing behind Kurenai and started to attack the Jonin. Crap. She mentally cursed as she barely avoided the attack. For the next 2 hours Kurenai was constantly on her toes, avoiding traps, random attacks, even the single bug once in a while. It wasn't until she felt herself become completely drained that she realized the trap that had been going on since the beginning, as she took a knee in the center of the clearing, panting for air. Looks like the plan worked, Shino. Naruto said as he and his teammates surrounded Kurenai before a small swarm of bugs flew off her and back into Shino's coat. Well done. Slowly increasing the number of beetles on me as time went by, draining me from the constant strain. Kurenai said as she slowly stood up. You 3 worked together expertly, you planned ahead, and most importantly you didn't rush into battle. Too many times people have been killed because they just charged in with no plan whatsoever. Kurenai said, making the group nod in understanding. Congratulations, you pass. Teammate is officially genin as of tomorrow when we start missions. Chores. Naruto corrected. Kurenai didn't even attempt to disagree with him. The group was contemplating where to go for lunch when an explosion made them turn and see a large dust cloud in the air. Sounds like another team has finished their test. Naruto said, making his teammates nod before they looked at Kurenai, who shrugged, and they 4 started making their way towards the field where the cloud is originated from. They arrived just in time to see Kakashi bowing to face his team. Pass. They heard him say, making Kurenai blink in surprise before Kiba and Akamaru cheered. While Sasuke smirked with Haruno tied to the stump, letting Naruto know she had been the one that helped the least. He remembered his mother explaining the bell test and that the one that got tied to the stump was the one that had been the most useless or least shinobi-like during the test. Jiraiya had been loud, kept falling for obvious traps, and never once tried to help his teammates, hence the reason why he had been tied up while his teammates sat on the ground freely. "Why don't you come out and join us?" Kakashi asked, suddenly waking Naruto from his thoughts. As he and his team walked out into view, making Team 7 blink at the sight of them. "Ah, Kurenai-san, I see your team passed as well." "Indeed. I'm surprised you passed them, Kakashi-senpai, after all you have yet to take a single team before them because they all failed your test." Well, these three seemed to at least grasp the concept behind the test. Kakashi said as Kiba took out a kunai and cut Sakura down and handed her a lunch box. Although I wouldn't doubt young Naruto of being able to understand this test, after all his mother and her team were the first to experience it. Kakashi said, making Team 7 look at him in surprise. Teamwork. The purpose behind this test was always the key thought behind our very shinobi corps. That we take care of each other out there. In the field, it doesn't matter what your problems with each other are, you are now responsible for keeping your teammates and comrades safe. The time for selfishness is done the moment you put on your headband and pass through those gates. Naruto said. Kakashi I smile at Naruto. Well put, Naruto. Kakashi said, making Naruto nod. Now however, I wonder just how well you would do against me for the bells. Then again, I don't expect much from a genin. Kakashi said, missing the slight twitch of Naruto's eyebrow. Uh-oh. 6 voices said in the woods, making Hiruzen look at his students and Naruto's sisters. Tell me he did not just underestimate Naruto. Rin said as she face palmed. He did. I've got 25 Ryo, says 15 minutes. Anko said, holding up said amount of Ryo dollars. I got 25 on 20 minutes. Tsunade said while Shizune sighed. Eventually all but Orochimaru and Shizune had a time slot bet that made Hiruzen wonder what they were betting on. They're betting on the amount of time it's gonna take Naruto to beat Kakashi and take the bells. Orochimaru said to his sensei, which made him just looked at the pale-skinned man in shock. Can he actually do that? Hiruzen asked, making Orochimaru gain a slight smirk. Why don't you just watch and find out? He said. Naruto kept a small smile on his face as his eyes closed to slits. After all, a genin is barely considered a challenge, let alone a single genin against a jonin. Kakashi-san. Naruto said, making Kakashi look over at the smile on Naruto's face. Shut up or I'll kill you. He said in such a way that for some reason sent shivers down the spines of everyone around him. It didn't help that somehow an evil aura was now surrounding him. Kiba, Sakura, and even Sasuke all paled at the sight before them and felt fear run up their spines, while Kakashi was barely able to keep it together. In the trees, Jiraiya was suddenly sitting and rocking while hugging his knees to his chest, constantly saying, "I'm a good boy." Hiruzen blinked a couple times and looked at Orochimaru, who chuckled nervously. He gets like that when Naruto does his little scare tactic. Of course, it doesn't help that the last time Jiraiya saw it was after Naruto had caught him trying to peep on his mother in the hot springs. Orochimaru explained while scratching the back of his head, much like Naruto sometimes did. Shino Hinata, do you mind if I handle this? Naruto asked, looking at his teammate, the smile still in place, making said teammates grow rigid and shake their heads in the negative rapidly. As Naruto relaxed his little trick and walked forward, Team 7 joined the remaining members of Team 8. That was Kiba started. I believe frightening would fit here. Shino suggested, making Kiba nod. Shall we then, Kakashi-san? Naruto asked as he pulled his fingerless gloves tighter onto his hands while cracking his knuckles. Whenever you're ready, Naruto. Kakashi said, taking his book out and ignoring Naruto said. Teen's eyebrows twitched 3 times rapidly after that. Very well, Naruto said, raising his fist into the air before bringing it down towards the ground. As his fist was able to touch down, he cried out. Hajime. As his fist hit the ground. What followed was the sight of the entire area in front of Naruto suddenly breaking apart and shattering as it all went flying towards Kakashi, who moved on pure reaction time and avoided the damage. Once the dust settled, everyone saw the damage down, showing that the only thing left of Naruto was his traveling cloak on the ground folded up. Team 8 and 7 went bug-eyed and felt their jaws hit the ground at the destruction of the area, since the ground looked like it had been hit with hundreds of exploding tags. Hiruzen was also staring with wide eyes and slack jaw, his pipe barely staying inside his mouth. He robotically turned towards his students, who were all suddenly looking away, whistling innocently. I gave you a baby, you brought me back a monster. Hiruzen said to them while they all chuckled nervously once more. Back in the clearing, a bug-eyed Kakashi was sitting in one of the trees. Okay, I may have underestimated this genin. The one-eyed shinobi mentally berated as he waited. It was only his years of training that alerted him of danger just in time for him to jump and avoid a kick from Naruto that shattered the branch he had been kneeling upon earlier. Whoa, he almost got Kakashi-sensei. Kiba gasped as Naruto and Kakashi now moved around on the ground in a taijutsu battle. Naruto was showing off a more flexible style, while Kakashi was using the Uchiha Interceptor Fist. That's the Snake Fang style. Kurenai thought, remembering seeing Anko and Orochimaru train together using the same style of fighting. Kurenai wasn't the only one that noticed this, as Kakashi kept trying to avoid the retaliation attacks that the Snake Fang provided for Naruto. "What style of taijutsu is that?" Kiba asked. "Snake Fanger Hibi style. Since Orochimaru is one of his original trainers, I'm not surprised to see it here," Kurenai said to the genin. Since he was the better taijutsu master of the Sannin, he must have been Naruto's taijutsu teacher. She added a moment later as they watched Naruto slam his foot down on the ground, making it break apart. All while Kakashi had used a replacement to get out of there and start to plan. While also adding his mother's monster strength. She added with a gulp. "Huh, not bad. Shinobi lesson number 2," Kakashi said as he flew through hand signs before vanishing from sight. Naruto paused before he looked behind him and saw the image of all of his sisters covered in kunai. "Bro, help us," Anko's voice said. "Ninjutsu?" Naruto said before he turned into a puff of smoke, revealing a log with Kakashi holding a kunai. "Brat," Kakashi mentally berated as he searched the area for the genin. "Shinobi lesson number 3. Naruto's voice said, making Kakashi look suddenly towards the post from earlier. "Ninjutsu. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu," Naruto said before taking a deep breath and spewing a wide blast of fire from his gullet. The other genin jumped out of the area and into the trees while the battle took place. When the fire blast cleared, Naruto looked at the scorched field before he blinked as he felt a kunai against his neck. "You mustn't let your enemies get behind you," Kakashi said with a small smirk. That is until he felt cool steel against his own throat. He looked down to see 2 katana crossed below his chin coming from behind him. "I didn't," Naruto said before the shadow clone in front of Kakashi dispersed. "Not bad. I may just have to take you seriously," Kakashi said before he vanished once more, making Naruto lower his blades. Kakashi stopped atop one of the posts and lifted his headband, revealing the Sharingan in his left eye. "I'd like to continue, but you've already lost," Naruto said, making Kakashi blink as he looked down to see that the bells were in fact gone. The sound of jingling made him look up to see Naruto holding the bells in his hand, making Kakashi blink. 12 minutes and 15 seconds. Orochimaru said, looking at his pocket watch, making Tsunade and Anko grumble as Rin collected her winnings, having been the only one to bet on 13 minutes. "And to think this was with neither Kakashi nor Naruto taking this seriously," Jiraiya said to his sensei in amusement. Kakashi smiled at the sight of the bells. "Well done. Next time I'll have to take our bout seriously," Kakashi said, making Naruto smile back. "So will I," he added, tossing the bells to the shocked Jonin as he moved off to join his team before they all left to go about their days. What if Mokuton Naruto adopted by Tsunade? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.